All right, welcome back. So in this video, I want to talk about something that wasn't in the other videos. So I want to talk about something else I learned about magic. So I already made 2 videos on the topic of magic, so I just titled this Magic 3, the 3rd video, right? So I really only intended to make 1 video on the topic. I didn't intend for it to be that long. And then the second video, I was like, oh, there's some stuff I forgot, so I added it in that second video. And now there's the stuff we're going to talk about. I actually didn't forget. I didn't know it at that time, or I didn't come up with a theory for it. So what I want to talk about in this video is actually something that was shown to me in a dream, interestingly enough, right? So I started theorizing about something that I was thinking about, and then something was shown to me in a dream, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that. And so then I looked up, I theorized about it a little bit more, and then when I came up with this theory, which I'm going to explain to you, I looked up, if that's what witches are saying, because they use magic. And sure enough, they did, right? They said exactly what I had theorized to be true and what was shown to me in a dream. And so that's basically what I want to talk about in this video. So it's not going to be very long. It's very short. This is just a tiny little thing that I learned about that I want to add to the other 2 videos. All right. So to go over this first point, it says, people have limited sovereignty over others. So I don't remember, it's actually been kind of a while since I wrote the book and I made the videos for the course online, so I don't remember if I explicitly stated that in the videos. I don't think I put in the book, but in the videos, I put a lot more in the videos, so I don't know if I put this in the videos. I do remember saying that we have the ability to pray for others, right? And that God, when you pray for another person, I believe, based on things I've seen, that God will work in a person's life. So if I pray for someone to know Jesus, right, God will take my prayer, he'll respond to my prayer and put at least one thing in that person's life, whoever I prayed for, that kind of stands out to them about Jesus Christ. So that's amazing, right? God will do that just because you asked. So it's very good. So whenever I pray to God, I always pray for for him to help someone, right? And I think I mentioned this in the videos. I don't just do the cop-out of I pray for everyone on the planet. No, right? Pray for someone whom you really have strong feelings for to know Jesus, right? So trust your heart, right? I don't necessarily do one person at a time. I usually just do one person because I want to do it in a way that I truly mean it with all my heart. I'm not just saying, oh, pray for that person, pray for that person, pray. Like, no, right? I mean it with all of my heart when I say it. So yeah, I recommend to pray for someone whom you really, really want to know Jesus, right? And you might say, well, I want everyone to know Jesus. I understood, but focus on someone specific that you have strong feelings for or you have a strong reason for due to some recent event in their life. Something like that. Just do it in an honest way, in a meaningful way from the heart, right? So anyway, right? So I did talk about that in the videos. So that's an example of a limited sovereignty we have, right? So actually, to recap the basic idea of sovereignty, so I talked about in chapter 4, how everything in the spirit realm is about free will, right? So when demons influence you, or when God influences you, or when you influence your own self or your own subconscious mind, it's all based on your free will, your intention, the conscious mind. And so, now it's not as the free will you gave, the permission you give to God or demons to influence your life, it's not as simple as saying, yes or no, right, with your conscious mind, right? Free will is measured by the charge of your subconscious energy, right? So when you charge subconscious energy in a way that pushes spiritual energy away, which means you're engaging in sinful behaviors. So we talked about that in chapter 3 of book 2. And in the videos as well, in the videos when we covered book 2. But when you engage in sinful behaviors that pushes spiritual energy away, but what's actually happening is based on the way you're charging subconscious energy, which is you're charging the absence of spiritual energy in that case, that's giving permission to demons whose nature is sin to enter to influence you. And also when the demon plants a suggestion in your subconscious mind and you say yes to it and you go along with it, your intention is charging your subconscious to be more greatly influenced by that demon. So we talked about the mechanics of that, which has to do with sensing in the spirit. When the demon influences your spirit or your subconscious and you focus on it and you go along with it, you charge your perception for that influence. And so the more you go along with it, the more your perception is charged to notice it. And so you can sense it much more strongly, and that just gives a demon more power over your subconscious and influence, and if you keep doing that, eventually you'll be possessed. All right, so we talked about that in chapter 5. But, so that's an example of sovereignty. So you have sovereignty over your own subconscious mind and how you manifest reality around you. Now, if you say yes to demons when they plant a suggestion in your subconscious, then they get more sovereignty over your subconscious. So they can make these suggestions they plant in your mind more powerful. They can enter your dreams, right? And they can influence how you manifest reality, right? Which is always going to be something antithetical or opposite God's nature, which is always going to be bad. When you say yes to God, God also plants suggestions in your subconscious to do something good, right? So do angels who are yoked with Jesus Christ, who are connected with Jesus. When they plant suggestions in your subconscious and you do something good, you're saying yes to God. The more you do that, the more you charge spiritual energy, and the more, which we talked about this in chapter 3, right? So we talked about the Holy Spirit. We talked about hearing from the Holy Spirit. When you charge a lot of spiritual energy, you become more sensitive to God and angels and spirits yoked with God. And it's like their voice becomes louder, which is exactly the opposite thing that happens when you say yes to sin, right? And you get possessed. When you, this is recap. I don't know if I need to do a recap this much, but suffice it to say, right, that's an example of sovereignty, saying yes to God. If you're curious more about it, then, I talked about that in chapter 3. I believe in the video and talked about the Holy Spirit and spiritual energy. So that's an example of sovereignty, right? So we have sovereignty over ourselves, but what we also have is limited, not full, but limited sovereignty over other people. And what that means is I have some degree of sovereignty over your life. I get to say, to some degree, what happens in your life, to a degree, right? You don't have to know me. You don't have to agree with what I'm saying. You've got no choice, right? So we're all connected. And I believe that's also a consequence of transcendental connection, which I talked about in chapter 1 of book 2, or the supernatural portion of the course, right? We're basically all connected to each other. Our subconscious is trying to imitate every other person's subconscious to a small degree, and it increases the more we transcendentally connect to a person. But yeah, so we have limited sovereignty over other people. We talked about in chapter 10 how this expresses itself in terms of genetics as well. So we talked about cursed bloodlines and blessed bloodlines. So if you live in sin, right, then you die in your sin, then a demon can have certain access to your genetics. So when another soul is born into that body, or another spirit is born into that body, then the demon will have some access to the genetics of that body. And that's why the Bible talks about cursed bloodlines, right? Now, that doesn't make it so that that person, has to listen to the demon, right? He can clean up the bloodline, remove the curse through Jesus and through the Holy Spirit, but that will take work, right? But the demon will have some greater access to that bloodline, and it can manifest in different ways. Either they can plant suggestions to your subconscious mind a little more easily. It can manifest in the form, I believe, of disease. I believe that's a lot of times how homosexuality occurs, right? Or transgenderism. So yeah, some people have psychic abilities, or they astral project. If their mom was a witch, a lot of times that happens. So there's stories like that online all the time. I've met a girl like that. So that's an example of how sovereignty affects our genetics, right? So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So just recognize that we all have sovereignty over each other. Some limited sovereignty. We have major sovereignty over ourselves, of course, but we have a limited amount of it over others. In fact, actually, one more thing are curses. So when a witch places a curse on somebody, I might have mentioned this in the other videos on magic, but it's been such a long time, I don't remember. But suffice it to say, a witch can place a curse on somebody using magic. Now, I think we did, in the other video, I did talk about how magic needs like a source, energy source, which you could think of as a manifestation source. And then it can attach itself to something so it acts like a carrier. That carrier thing there's like a transmission system, like you deploy it, almost like a virus, right? You can deploy it, which you could do through songs. You can use music as a transmission system. A lot of demons do that with celebrities. You can use occult objects, right? That happens a lot in New Age as a transmission system. But those either the music or the object, it contains the energy from the source of that energy, usually some demon. The witch will usually accept the energy from some demon and then attach that energy to some object or some music or something. And then if you come in contact with that object or listen to that music, you're saying yes to it, which means you're coming into agreement with it. Now that energy is influencing you to manifest something that's like in the likeness of the demon's intention, which is always going to be something antithetical to the nature of God, right? So that's an example also of limited sovereignty. And I should also say, with curses, I think where I was going with that was curses. So when you now you can place a curse in that way, but a witch can also just focus on you and just send energy to you to place a curse on you. And that's going to affect your subconscious mind. You say, when demons can influence your subconscious, so can people. Most people aren't aware of the mechanics of the subconscious, so they just don't really know how to do it, like, proficiently. We all do it without even realizing it. But if you obviously know what you're doing, you can do it better. Most people don't really know of any of this stuff, right? I'll mention, I don't know if I mentioned in other videos, most people, their subconscious is doing so many things from the body. So the body is almost like an operating system, like on a computer, right? So it's doing so many things that they don't recognize the components of the subconscious that's doing something just for their mind, right? So they don't use their subconscious using their mind at full capacity. Demons don't have that problem. They don't have a physical body, so they could put all of their thoughts to just controlling energy and using their subconscious, things like that. So I think I did talk about that in chapter 5, right? So a lot of witches and celebrities, they will want a demon to sort of give them powers or magic or something, right? To help. What the demon's really doing is he's using his full subconscious ability to help the person, either to help them use their subconscious in a particular way or to help manifest certain things for them, because it would be too much work for that person to manifest those things using their own subconscious energy, right? So that's kind of how it works. In other words, demons are much more freed up because they don't have a physical body, so they can use their subconscious at full capacity much more. People have a body. Our body's doing a million different things with our subconscious. It's much harder to control it. Most people aren't aware of how their subconscious works, so people can't really use these abilities to full power, but some can, right? Some can use it more than others, and that's witches. So a witch can easily, just like a demon could, they can easily have an intention, send some energy to you, and that'll influence your subconscious mind. And if you come into agreement with it, then that'll influence you in a way that reflects the witch's intention. So that's what a curse is. And so a witch can put more energy into it or less energy, right? Just depends on how much they want to curse you, right? But so if you come into agreement with that energy, it'll influence your thoughts and your beliefs. And when you, like, if a person places a curse on you to be sad or hateful or something, they would send energy to you that influences your subconscious to think a hateful thought, just like a demon would, right? And if you come into agreement with it by thinking a hateful thought and you keep doing it, that's the curse. So now you're going to manifest, your whole reality is going to manifest in a way that reflects that negative thought or that negative belief. That's what a curse is. Right? And you could do more advanced curses and things like that. But suffice it to say, that's an example of limited sovereignty. There's nothing you could do to prevent me from sending that negative energy to you. Now, you will be judged by God for doing things like that, but you want to use your limited sovereignty to help people, not to curse them or to do things that are for selfish reasons to make life easier for you in a selfish way, right? In some way, not walking in the nature of God. So now I set that whole thing up, right, to talk about this next point. So that was more or less recap. But this next point is what I actually learned in a dream. So like I said, I was theorizing about it a little bit, and then I had a dream that showed me this, which I really didn't know that, right? And then I looked it up, and it seemed to be confirmed. So let me just read it, and then I'll explain it. So it says, people have the ability to claim the residual life force of the recently deceased. So what does that mean? Well, let me break it down. So what I was thinking about, like I said, I'm always theorizing, right? I theorize about everything, right? Been that way my whole life. So I was theorizing about something I was reading about in the Bible. So I mentioned in the videos how I was trying to read the Bible more. I want to read it from front to back. And I noticed there were a lot of there's a lot of references to sacrifices in the Bible, sacrificing an animal for the purpose of sin or cleansing a sin. And now I read the Bible and I asked God about this, and I made a video on the topic of how I believe we're supposed to interpret the Bible. The Bible the Bible was inspired by God. And so even now that I'm reading it more, I can see that there are a lot of metaphors. I believe much of the truth in the Bible is metaphorical, right? It's in there. You know what I mean? The metaphor is in there behind the words, and you need the Holy Spirit to sort of recognize it. And so I'm looking at this in the Bible, I'm like, no, this is some metaphorical truth, because it keeps talking about animal sacrifices for the cleansing of sin. I'm like, God is trying to tell us something through these stories, which I guess are from, the Jewish religion or something back in the day. But no, I believe this is an actual truth that God is trying to show us about the spirit realm, about metaphysics. And so I'm thinking, well, I think that a life is able to compensate for sin, right? So if a life is sacrificed, then it's like it cleans a sin or cleanses a sin or gets rid of it. And so I was thinking about it, and then in a dream, something was shown to me. I think I was thinking about how witches and things like that also do sacrifices. So I was trying to think, because when there's a positive, there's almost always a negative, right? A negative version of that. So I was thinking about how, well, Jesus sacrificed his life to cleanse everybody's sins, right? So he's following that metaphysical law that reflects God's nature and the rules he placed in reality. So that's the positive version of a sacrifice, right? In order to get rid of our sins, Jesus willingly sacrificed his life to reflect the Father's will to cleanse all of our sins, right? But then I was thinking, well, what about when witches sacrifice too? There has to be some connection between the two. There's a positive version, which is what God does, and a negative version. And then it was shown to me in a dream that yes, right, there is a negative version. That what witches can do is they can sacrifice a life to enhance a sin, to make it more powerful, right? Which I didn't know that. So yeah, that's basically what I'm referring to here. And the way I think it works, right? So this is all theory, of course, but the way I think it works is when a witch, let's say if they have an animal, because I believe they usually do it with animals because they don't have to worry about the government, right? It is still illegal to kill an animal if you're not eating it, but you can get away with it a lot easier. So let's say a witch kills like a chicken or something, right? I'll start saying unalives, right? Let's say a witch unalives a chicken, right? What I believe happens, so this is my theory, is when a life is lost, right? So when there's death, the death of a life, there's a residual amount of life force energy that just kind of stays around. Because we're the owner of that energy, right? That energy is attached to us. It's connected to us. So we actually talked about in chapter 8 through the silver cord. But when that silver cord is cut, which means we're dead, we die, I believe there's a certain amount of energy still left over. It's like it has no owner anymore. So now, and this is actually a reflection of just how powerful we are in the spirit realm. Because we're endowed, we're still connected to God. No matter how evil we are, we're still connected to God until we die, right? So I talked about that in chapter 8 also, with chi energy. We get a refill of our chi from God's spirit. Now, I believe when we die, there's some residual energy left over, and using our limited sovereignty, we have the ability to claim that energy. That's how I think it works. And I think, going even further, that the more connected we are to the person or the thing that died, the more easily we can claim the energy. Why? Because we're more transcendently connected to it. So we talked about in chapter 8 how chi energy isn't like physical energy, right? Where, let's say I take the mechanical energy of this marker and I just throw it at the wall, right? The wall, the moment it interacts with the wall, it transmits the energy. It doesn't have to be connected to the wall or know the wall or be best friends with the wall or anything, right? Nor do I as I interact with this marker. Chi energy isn't like that. Chi energy only works with what it's transcendently connected to. So if I were to take a ball of chi energy and throw it at the wall, it would go right through the wall because it doesn't see the wall. The wall doesn't exist to it because it isn't connected to the wall. And we talked about this in chapter 7 and 8 with psychic abilities. Chapter 7 was about sensing, and chapter 8 was about influence type psychic abilities. If I want the chi to interact with the wall, I have to transcendentally connect to the wall, which means using my psychic abilities. Then I could throw it at the wall, then they'll interact with the wall. So within the chi lies the transcendental connection. So it has to be connected to something to interact with it transcendentally, right? Or, through chi energy. And so I think when a person is very connected to another person, right, and they're even more so, they're connected to their death, which I'll talk about that in a moment, then it's like your subconscious is more transcendentally connected to that individual and their death, and that gives you a greater ability to manipulate their energy, just like my own chi energy, right? So my own chi energy I can manipulate because it's most transcendental. It's a little more deeper than transcendental connection for our energy, right? So we talked about the silver cord connection and transcendental connection, chapter 8. But still, if I want to use my chi, I have to use my conscious mind to transcendentally connect it to something, right? And I can manifest it in my body in a more transcendental way, which is different from a silver cord connection, but I can manifest in my body in a transcendental way if I use transcendental connection, which requires my psychic abilities. And so if I connect myself more with the thing that dies, right? And I can even, which is do rituals. We talked about the way rituals work, how you can associate, you can use rituals to get a boost from the superconscious mind. So I don't know that I need to go into it. We already talked about chapter 10. But still, you can use rituals to get a boost from the superconscious mind, right? To boost the manifestational energy through the ritual. So if a person dies, right, and let's say you're involved in their death, right? So you're the one who caused the death. You're the one who engaged, in other words, in the sacrifice. If you do it in the form of a ritual, right, not only do you transcendentally connect to the event of the death more, because, your mind, you kept thinking of the moment they die. By constantly thinking of the moment they die, you're transcendentally connecting yourself to the event of their death. And if you already know them especially, then your subconscious is very connected to that person, or transcendentally connected. So if you're transcendentally connected to the person because of someone you know, someone you're close to, someone you love, and you keep focusing on their death, let's say you keep speaking their death, or you keep writing their death, this is how witches would do this, right? You write just something related to their death on this board over and over and over. You keep imagining their death. You keep asking demons to cause their death. If you keep doing that, you're yoking yourself for transcendentally connecting to the event of their death. And we talked about how sensing in the spirit works, not limited by time in the same way. We talked about the possibility verse and things like that. So you can do that. And when their death finally happens, you're the most transcendentally connected to it. And so you have the ability to most easily control the energy. So that energy is generally magnetized to the person, right? But the moment they die, it's like it becomes free. It has no owner anymore. So the person most connected to it has the easiest ability to claim it. So that's how I believe this works. And so you can see that a witch would have an interest in sacrificing something or being involved or planning in some way the death of something in order to claim its energy, its manifestational energy. So we talked about how in the spirit realm, in the other video on magic, how you always need a source of energy. Now, in the spirit realm, actually, do I want to talk about that now? Yeah, so actually I'm gonna mention it. So in chapter 8, I talked about how another theory I had on anti-life or negative life force energy, which is what demons have. So it's so funny because there was this guy, I should have looked up his name. There was this guy who was saying everything that I said exactly, and I didn't even know that. I didn't see his video right at that time. But he was saying everything I said he was confirming it. He didn't say everything I said, but he confirmed a lot of what I said about anti-life energy, or the negative energy that that demons have. And you know what, I might make a video on it, because I made another YouTube channel, which I might put on that channel. But there was what's her name? Dakota Lee. So she says that she goes to heaven and that Jesus shows her things and things like that. And she said something similar to exactly what I said, right? So, like I said, I'm always theorizing. And so when I see things that confirm my theory, I'm like, yes, right? So that's how it is when you theorize. But yeah, so they said something that confirmed what I said about anti-life energy, which is basically that demons, because they're not connected to God, right? They can't produce their own energy. I think they produce a certain amount, and it could be that they they produce a certain amount of energy, like a 0 point amount of energy, but it's not positive. They produce a 0 point of negative energy, but they can't produce positive energy. We can produce positive energy, but we can use our connection to God for the energy he gives us to produce negative energy. But that negative energy still has life in it, right? Because we're not dead. And so even though it's negative, and even though it's produced out of sin, it still has life in it. And so that, because it has life, it's like food to demons, right? They can't absorb the negative, the positive life force energy we produce, because they can't connect to its frequency. It's a frequency that's positive and reflects the nature of God. Sinful or negative life force energy reflects a nature that isn't of God. So even though it has life in it, they can absorb it and they can connect to it. So it's like food to them. Now, we don't have to worry about stealing people's energies and things like that because we're connected to God and God has infinite energy and there's infinite life. Demons don't have an infinite source of energy, so they got to keep stealing it. And they have to keep making sure that we produce negative energy through negative emotions and sinfulness and things like that. So they farm us, right? They plant suggestions in our subconscious mind. They plant suggestions in certain higher up people in society's subconscious mind. So these would be government, celebrities, billionaires. We talked about this in chapter 5 in the video on spiritual warfare. And they just ensure that there's a good amount of negative energy being produced in society because that's food for them. So they farm us energetically. Now, what they do, when they want to help somebody to manifest something, let's say they come into agreement with the demon, let's say they come into agreement with a person, let's say a witch. That witch wants to use telekinesis, right? They want to use psychokinesis on some object. That costs energy, right? And so what I believe is that demons they'll do that because it's easier to steal energy from you, right? Or it's easy to connect to you and they can use you for different things. But I don't think they like to do it that much because it costs energy. They don't have an infinite supply of energy. So that's also what the guy in the video said. If I can find his name, I'll probably just edit it into the video. But he said the same thing, that they don't have an infinite supply of energy. And so they'll give you some of their energy, but they want more in return, right? It's almost like politics, right? When lobbyists will give politicians money, but so they can get tax cuts in return. So they make more money than what they gave you, right? They got more out than what they put in. That's the idea. And so demons kind of like to do the same thing. So they might give a witch a little bit of energy to do telekinesis and things like that, right? They do a little bit. They don't do a lot because it costs a lot of energy to move a physical object with your chi energy. And they don't want to give it to you. They don't want to give a lot of energy for you to do that. So you can move tiny little things, but what they really want is for you to tell other people, right? To focus on them and seek them. And that's what's done a lot in New Age. And that's so funny because the guy said the exact same thing that I was thinking. And he basically said what I just said now. And I was like, that makes sense based on what I said in that video in chapter 8. So he said that they do that. I think in the video he was saying how they do that with Hindus, right? So Hindus worship, which I'm going to talk about this a little more. And then I'm going to make another video about NDEs because I think even more of them are fake than even in the amount I thought before. But what he said made sense. But no, I'll talk about that a little later about Hinduism. But he was talking about how some people will have, in New Age especially, or Hindus, will have a spiritual experience. And he says because the demon's giving them energy to have these experiences so that they can tell other people, right? And so demon might give energy to a witch and do telekinesis or astral project or something, but the demon is hoping that witch brings more people to him so he gets more energy, right? Because those people, when they become yoked with a demon or start following a demon and things like that, or some religion-y demon made up, right? Then they'll start producing more of that negative energy, and if it spreads, that's more food for the demon. But sometimes, and I believe this happens with celebrities, the demon might not want to give the celebrity all of this energy. If they have a very large sort of, if they have a reality what they want to manifest, it might require a lot of energy. So for example, if they want to be rich, to take a bum off the street and make them rich is going to cost a lot of manifestational energy. The source of this manifestational energy is a demon. He might not want to give you all of that energy to manifest all of that because it costs a lot. So what I think he will do a lot of times, and this happens, right? Well, this is my theory, but a lot of people believe this happens, not just in this context. They believe that a lot of celebrities will engage in sacrifices. Why are they sacrificing people? Especially they usually do it with someone close to them. Why? Well, because when a person sacrifices someone close to them, they're more transcendentally connected to them. They love them more. So they can more easily claim their energy, right? And so they can do just some random person, but it works better. It's more easy for you to claim that energy when it's someone close to you, right? And so when you sacrifice someone close to you, you can claim that energy and offer it to the demon. Actually, that's what I forgot to mention before. So when I went on that witch website, that's what they said. They said that this was shown to me in a dream, and I was wondering, is this something witches are saying? Does that happen? And they said yes. They say if they sacrifice a chicken, what they usually do is they try to claim it and they offer it to the demon. Because now a person could claim it themselves and just use it on their own, but like I said, most people don't know how to use their energy, how to control chi energy. They don't understand the rules of the subconscious or chi energy or any of that stuff, right? But they do know how to speak to a demon, and a demon doesn't have a physical body. They're free to use their subconscious at full capacity. They know exactly what to do with that energy. So I think, like I said, we have sovereignty over other people. If a person is close to us is sacrificed, that it's easier for us to claim their energy. It's like greater efficiency. I imagine you could sacrifice a chicken too. When a witch sacrifices a chicken, they might want to get closer to the chicken, not just do it right away. And then you could probably do that, but you won't be able to claim the energy as well, right? Or as much. It's like you won't be able to claim the energy with as great an efficiency, right? You might be able to get 50% of what you probably would have the closer you were to the chicken. So I imagine a witch will, if they want to sacrifice a chicken, right, they might bring the chickens to the house, get to know it in a sense, right? Just feed it and almost like be friends with it. Now it's easier to claim their energy. It hurts them more, but they can claim their energy. So this hurting someone you love the most is just the nature of demons. And so for a purpose of selfishness is just the nature of demons. So when a witch sacrifices a chicken in that way, and this was what I was reading this was on Reddit, they said that they were usually focused on the energy or trying to claim it and then offer it to the demon to help them manifest some reality. In their mind, they're working with the demon. I imagine they don't recognize them as demons. Actually, no, some of them did, but they think demons are good. Oh man, the deception. So anyway, right, they think demons are good and they're not what Christianity says, right? They're just different beings. It's just unbelievable. But anyway, that's what they think. So they offer it to a demon, and in their mind, they're working with the demon to manifest their reality. The demon gets some energy. He gets to keep some for himself, and he gets to work with you to manifest what you want. So it's like a symbiotic relationship. So that's what they said. And that was shown to me in a dream as well, that principle. And so what I think celebrities do is I think you can get a decent amount of energy from like a chicken or an animal, but I think you can get a lot more from a person, a human. So I think we have a lot more chi energy in us. And so when you're closer to a person, it's much easier for you to claim their energy really over anyone else. And so a lot of demons, I believe, this is a theory, right, that they might ask a celebrity to sacrifice someone close to you so you can get a good amount of efficiency out of claiming their energy. In that energy, when you sacrifice someone in that demon's name or for the purpose of that demon, the demon has a right to claim it now. I imagine there's still something you have to do. You have to say something or whatever to give the demon that right over the energy. But when you do that, the demon now can use that energy to manifest something that, he's supposed to per the agreement this witch or whoever, the celebrity made with the demon, right? So the demon's like, no, I don't want to use all of my energy for you. You've got to bring me some energy. And the best energy source for them is a life force, someone dying, right? Demons can always steal energy from us while we are alive, but it's little pieces at a time, right? It's not that much at a time because we're still alive, we're using it. But if something dies, then there's a huge amount remaining. And it's I feel like in the spirit realm, it's the best kind of energy source for demons is a life, right? It's like nuclear energy. which we don't use fusion, but I'll just say nuclear energy, right? So you can have energy from burning coal, you can have solar powered energy, wind energy, things like that. But the most, let's see, how do I want to use it? The most amount of energy you can get compared to what you put in or per unit mass, however you want to kind of measure it, would be nuclear energy. It's the most powerful, right? So life force energy from a death is like nuclear energy in the spirit realm, right? Demons love that, right? That's also the hardest to get though, because most people aren't willing to sacrifice someone close to them. But if you are willing to do it, a demon can use it and manifest your reality. So they can turn someone into a celebrity, give them magic powers, things like that, right? So that's what I believe celebrities do. And I remember, and I'm not saying he did this, but this is just an example. So Eminem, his, and I've read conspiracy theory videos on this, right? So Proof, he had a friend called Proof, and in the video, Eminem made a video where his friend Proof was killed or shot, I think outside a store or something. And then sure enough, that's what happened later. So now most people think there's some type of occultism going on in that. Well, here I am, right? So explain to you how magic works. So how would that work in terms of magic theory, what I've been telling you guys about? Well, we talked about the significant property of magic, which we don't really know that those properties. Significant property would just be, like if you do something with this material on this day, on this calendar day, right? On this time of day when the sun's here, like things like that may enhance the ability to manifest something. We don't know what those rules are. Demons know them, and they sometimes will give them to witches, but we don't know those rules. So that could be part of it, what he's doing. But also what I think he's doing is, or I'm not saying Eminem did this, but I think what would happen if that was an occult practice is if you have a video, right, and everybody's watching this person die, right, and it's your friend or whatever, two things are happening. One, you're now becoming yoked with the event of that person's death, right? Because your intention put that in the video, right? So you're focusing on it, and you say, put this in the video. This person's death is imagined. So what did I say before? You want to intentionally yoke yourself to that person's death. You can do it by writing their death down. You could keep speaking their death into existence. You could keep imagining in your head. You can do things in your life to associate with the event of that person's death. If you're planning it, you kind of know what it's going to be, right? You could do different things so that when it finally comes, you're the one who claimed the energy, right? Because you're the most transcendentally connected to it, because you were planning it, right? And so in this case, if you release a video and everybody's seeing this person die, then they're adding energy to that event in the superconscious, right? And they're yoking you with that event too, because they're focusing on an event, they're manifesting it, they're producing attention in their mind that says this event happened. That goes into the superconscious and manifests it tries to manifest that event as well. It's somewhere, you could say in superconscious memory, it's associated with, to some degree, with you, the celebrity, in this case Eminem, and it's associated with Proof, right, his friend. So, in a sense, it has energy in the superconscious. Now, and it's associated with Eminem. So the superconscious would help Eminem to claim this energy upon Proof's death, right? And so when the death actually happens, especially when it happens just like in the video, the superconscious will give you a boost, because you're already connected in the superconscious to that event, right? And especially if you are planning it, it's super easy for you to claim that energy. And especially if it happens exactly like was said in the video. So this would be the occult magic of it. This is how magic works, right? You want to yoke yourself to the event, and you do that in you can do it different ways, but you just want to yoke yourself to the event by constantly focusing on it. If you're associated within the superconscious, in millions of people, or the ones who charge the superconscious, then you'll get a boost the moment that event comes, right? In your focus, when you focus on it, and when you think about you can even do it by thinking about the video, but when you focus on it, the superconscious will give you a boost, and you knowing that person makes you're so super close to them, so you claim that energy even more easily. So, I don't believe Eminem's the only one. I think I've seen so many conspiracy theory videos, but I think there are more like that. I won't say there's lots. I think there are more, right? Because I'm pretty sure I've seen more things like that, right? Where you see them in videos. That's what's happening, right? That's how magic works. You're yoking to yourself. You're trying to get the subconscious to transcendentally connect to this future event so you can claim the energy, right? So So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. But yeah, so that's why, it could be that witches and occultists and celebrities engage in sacrifices, right? Because they want the sacrifice, they're able to claim the energy of the sacrifice, offer it to a demon, and the demon can help them now to manifest. The demon now has the energy to help them manifest things, right? Because you imagine, not every demon, it's not as simple as, not every celebrity just willingly gives their soul to a demon, right? The demon has to trick them and manipulate them and things like that. So they might be willing to give more energy if they're guaranteed that person's soul. And I don't know that that ever happens. I think the person can always break it through Jesus Christ. But, if they're not going that far, then the demon might not know if it's worth it to give this person energy and manifest. Because they want the person to bring them more souls, right? Which, if you're a celebrity, especially like in rap music, they're like, oh, you can bring lots of souls if you're successful, right? I don't know if you're going to be successful. You might give up or be lazy. So they might not want to give you all that much energy. So they might wait for people to get a certain amount of success. Or if they're not that successful at all, they're like, okay, look, I'll give you some energy, but you got to bring me some, right? So you have to engage in a sacrifice, right? And so that's what I believe. You can also sacrifice chickens as well. I think there's a woman named Azealia Banks. I think I read that from her on Twitter or something like that. She said that, yes, she sacrifices chickens to engage in witchcraft and manifest her reality, right? So it doesn't have to be a human sacrifice. They'll take chicken energy too, right? It's not as good as a human life, but they'll take it. But yeah, so that's basically what I want to talk about in this video. So that it just basically has to do with how sacrifices work. But yeah, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video.